Ever since Total War Warhammer 2 was announced, the idea of cross-game DLC has been flooding the forums and the Reddits for as far as I can remember, with loads of rounds of speculative content being posted around the forums everywhere. And in truth, the more people posted, the more I started thinking about cross-game DLC. But as time has progressed and I've been able to properly think about it, I've realized that while it is still possible, we might not get all the DLC we've actually been wanting. And there's a few reasons why, so the reason I've made this video is actually to talk about that. But before we begin, let me just make one thing very clear. I love the Total War Warhammer series. I think the content has been great so far, even the DLC packs, and I honestly can't wait for more. And as much as I would love cross-game DLC, especially since we're going to get a third game, I do realize there's a little bit of an issue that presents itself there, which maybe Creative Assembly haven't fully outright addressed just yet, which is in regards to maybe some DLC, while very popular and a very good idea, not being logistically good enough to be able to warrant being made. Each game has itself 4 baseline races. We've got the Empire, the Dwarves, the Greenskins, and the Vampire Counts for Game 1, the Skaven, the Lizardmen, the High Elves, and the Dark Elves for Game 2, with no races being confirmed for Game 3 as of the time of recording this video. Regardless what the Game 3 main factions are, they'd have to make a cross-game DLC that would fit within Game 1 and 2, or 2 and 3, or 1 and 3, with those DLCs only being able to be played in the most recent games. So for example, a cross-game DLC for Game 1 and 2 would only be played in Game 2 and 3, and a cross-game DLC between Game 1 and Game 3 would only be played in Game 3 and not in Game 1 or 2. The issue that would present itself here is that Creative Assembly would have to make a cross-game DLC for the 2 titles that sold the most. So for example, if Game 1 and Game 3 sold the most, it's more than likely we'd get a cross-game DLC between those 2 games and not Game 2 and 3 or 1 and 2. Let's face it, in terms of numbers, they're here to make money, and at the end of the day, if Game 2 did not sell that much compared to Game 1 and 3, they wouldn't see a point, would they? Now before we carry on, I just want to say, obviously I do not know how many people own both games or will own all 3 games, and I also don't know how many copies of each respective game has sold. This is purely speculative, but it's just for a little bit of a discussion. We know that the DLCs would have to be focused around the main base races for each game, which does indeed make sense, because at the end of the day, imagine getting DLC for DLC. I doubt that Creative Assembly would be willing to risk that flack, and plus we don't really know how well some of the DLCs have sold, and I might be wrong here, but I do believe that Creative Assembly have actually stated there will be no DLC for DLC. More than likely we will see DLC like the Grim and the Paunch, as the fans have lovingly dubbed it, between Eltharion the Grim and Grom the Paunch. That is baseline, it's very well known. If both games sold together, that would be really cool. We'll probably see some other ones, like for example the Dwarves vs the Skaven or the Greenskins vs the Skaven. Let's face it, the Skaven have caused enough problems to both these races. Or maybe the High Elves vs the Dwarves, in kinda a remembrance of the War of the Beard type of thing. And a few others if they go by a number of lore books and so on. Naturally, I can't really reference Game 3 because, as I said before, we don't really have any information regarding that just yet, other than it's going to be utter chaos. The issue about no DLC for DLC is understandable, because obviously fans would get annoyed for it. They already paid for it once, why should they pay for it again? Especially if the cross-game DLC is between 2 DLC factions and so on. It does present a bit of an issue because there's a lot of thematic stuff that people would be missing out for, and I doubt Creative Assembly will do massive patches or free DLC packs for free. Let's face it, at the end of the day, as I said before, they have to make money. Which worries me in terms of stuff like Nagash, because let's face it, he is related to both the Tomb Kings and the Vampire Counts. Technically that's a cross-game DLC, and it features a DLC for DLC. But we never know exactly what they might actually do. For all we know, they could be working on multiple cross-game DLCs for all 3 games, and they may surprise us soon enough. We know they're working on a few content patches right now, so you never know, but I doubt it. I kinda just wanted to do this video just to talk about the idea of cross-game DLC, and I'm not trying to be anyone's buzzkill here, I'm just talking about it in a very realistic sense. And believe me, I am one of those people who would still buy DLC for DLC because I love the content. I've got almost 3,000 hours on both games together. And the fact that I'm able to control armies from a universe that I love so much, as you know from this channel. If you're new here, I cover loads of different Warhammer Fantasy aspects, including the tabletop and lore. There is a lot of love for the fantasy universe, and hell, the more they want to throw at me, I will happily buy. But rather than ending on a negative note, whether it's likely or unlikely that we'll see cross-game DLC, I kinda want to start a little discussion with you guys. What do you guys think would be a cool idea for a cross-game DLC? You could also include DLC for DLC if you want to. Honestly, the only one I'm actually really waiting for is the Grim and the Paunch. I'm a big fan of the lore revolving around both of them, and I think it would be really cool to have a greenskin army invading Ulthuan at some point. Because let's face it, out of all the factions, I think the High Elf one is the most boring one to start with, because you're just dealing with Dark Elves and High Elves, so you're really just seeing the same thing twice. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below on what type of cross-game DLC you'd like to see. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.